Hey everybody, this is a statement of cash flows. I know what you're thinking. It doesn't get more exciting than this. Actually, I doubt very many of you are thinking that. I think it's pretty exciting. I like statements of cash flows because they don't lie nearly as much as income statements and balance sheets do. There are far fewer assumptions involved in the statement of cash flows. That being said, they're still based upon information where there are some assumptions involved. So even that's not perfect, except that at the end of the day, there's only so much cash sitting in the checking account, and only so much cash sitting, um, as hard currency, and so it's just harder to fudge the statement of cash flows. Um, I think I mentioned this before, and I'll probably mention it again, but cash flow is the lifeblood of a business. If you don't have money to pay your suppliers and you don't have money to pay your employees, you will very quickly find yourself out of business. I mean, people are nice and people will like you, but they don't like you so much they're going to give you free stuff, and they don't like you so much they're going to work for free. So the statement of cash flows helps us track that asset which is most precious to making the business work. Um, so the company I have up on the screen here is a company called Berkshire Hathaway. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Berkshire Hathaway. Uh, a couple of features. Check out, this is their per share price. So if you want to buy one share of Berkshire Hathaway, it's going to cost you $190,000. Today they're down $520 a share. So it's bargain prices, snatch it up, I guess. But really, most of us would never own a share of this in our life. Very wealthy people and more often institutional investors purchase Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway is a securities investing firm. The founder and the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, I'm pretty sure he's still the CEO. I better double check that. I don't want to tell you a lie. Is Warren Buffett. And many have heard of Warren Buffett. He's got a number of I guess people just respect him because his businesses have done so well. And he's a billionaire. Anyway, so Berkshire Hathaway, they, like I said, they invest in securities. They buy out companies or buy up companies that they think are valuable. It is the majority holder of Dairy Queen stock. Mr. Buffett says he invested in Dairy Queen because it's simple and he understands it. He thinks people like ice cream. He thinks they like fried foods. He enjoys eating at Dairy Queen himself, and so he thinks it's a good investment. He thinks the management is good, and other reasons too. And mostly, but I should say that's just his philosophy. He doesn't believe in investing in companies he doesn't understand. He missed a lot of growth in the tech bubble, but he also missed the big crash because he said, hey, I'm not going to put my money into things I don't understand. All right, so let's take a look at how a statement of cash flows is laid out. It starts at the very top with net income. Remember, net income is from the income statement. It's the revenues minus the expenses. And we've talked about already the fact that cash doesn't always match up with net income because there can be expenses that reduce the net income but that have not yet been paid for in cash. There can be receivables that that we've made adjustments to that we haven't collected yet, things like that. All right, so we start with our net income, and then we make adjustments for the changes in these balance sheet accounts. Well, let me back up. Before we even do that, let's notice that it's broken into three sections. The first is called the operating activities section. So cash flows provided by or used in operating activities. The second section is cash flows provided by or used in investing activities. And the third section is cash flows provided by or used in financing activities. Operating activities are those activities that the business does as part of their business operations. So if you work for the Kroger Corporation, their operating activities primarily consist of buying and selling groceries and other items, right? We have Fry's Electronics, things like that. Anyway, so that's operating activities. Investing activities are activities of buying and selling investments. That usually means fixed assets or long-term assets, things like property, plant, equipment, land, and sometimes the investments in other businesses. Finally, financing activities involve borrowing money or selling stock, anything that brings money into the business, not through operations, but through financing the business in some way. And so we'll start with net income, then we'll have cash flows that are either provided by or used in operating, and then cash that was either provided by or used in investing, and then cash that was provided by or used in financing. So we'll see at the end of 2014, or during the period of 2014, Berkshire Hathaway, and remember these are in thousands, so their net income was $19,872,000,000. Not a bad year. We'll see that net income was added to by total cash flows from operating activities of $32 billion. Total cash outflows from investing activities, you can see that comes from capital expenditure. That means buying buildings and land, things like that. Investments and other cash flows from investing of negative $19 billion. So they spent a lot of cash. And then from financing activities, they actually have a negative on sale purchase of stock. That means they bought back some of their own company stock. They borrowed $3,996,000,000. They had some others. So the total cash flow from financing was $2,731,000,000. In the end, they had a change in cash, a positive change of $15 billion. So that's how a statement of cash flows is laid out. And so then I just want to walk you through quickly the basic process of creating a statement of cash flows. We start with our net income. We pull that off of the income statement. Then we look at each of our assets. We start with depreciation. Remember, depreciation as an expense reduced our net income, but it wasn't a cash expense. In other words, we spent the money on that building or whatever it is we're depreciating years ago when we bought it, but each year we take a depreciation expense. So in order for us to figure out how much cash we got, we've got to add any depreciation expense we take back in, and that happens right here in the operating section. So this means if we'd looked at their income statement, they would have taken a depreciation expense of $7,370,000,000. So they're adding that back in to account for the fact that even though the net income was $19 billion, they actually had $26 billion in cash from those operations. And then they make other adjustments for changes in these asset accounts. And that's what gives them their cash flows from operating activities. There'll be another video that I'll put out probably tomorrow that kind of walks you through the process of creating a statement of cash flows. This is just meant to be kind of an overview. Then this represents $15 billion spent on capital expenditures, buying buildings, land, and so forth. $581 million spent on investments, another $3.6 billion spent on other things. So a total of $19 billion in cash going out of the business for investing. And then again, this represents $1.2 billion being spent to buy stock back from the market, and $3.99 billion borrowed, and then whatever these $22 million in other cash flows, we don't know exactly what those are. So a net positive $2.7 billion from financing activities. So in the end, if we looked on their balance sheet, we would expect that this year's cash figure will be $15 billion greater than last year's cash figure. So pretty good year for Berkshire Hathaway 2014. I hope this helped explain it a little bit. Like I said, I'll also post some other information to walk you through the process of creating a statement of cash flows. And if I find anything good out there on the internet, I'll direct you to that too. Good luck this week. This can be a challenging chapter for some people, so stick with it and let me know if you need any help.